And welcome to Power Rankings, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer.
Still going.
Still going. Our esteemed author of the article, which allows this show to air, is that man right there, Dan Hanzus, the old Zeuser, as he's known in these parts. You may know him as the inventor of JetsRegrets.net, an online outlet for the laments of the long languishing Jet fan.
Is that a thing? Because I'm going to take that domain name if it's not.
It's all yours.
All right, great.
It is all yours. Zeuser, let's get a look at the top 8 as we start things off at the top like we always do on Power Rankings. The Chiefs still sit at number 1 despite their 6-0.
It's the Power Rankings, and the Chiefs in the second straight week playing in some unforgiving weather conditions, this time frigid temperatures up there in Denver with some snow, aren't able to do the Patrick Mahomes air show thing, and I'm sure they'll do that against the Jets this upcoming week. So instead, they rely on the rest of their team to absolutely blow out the Broncos on the road. They get help. There's Le'Veon Bell made his debut. Clyde Edwards-Helaire played well, scored a touchdown. They got a pick 6 from Daniel Sorensen. Byron Pringle had a 102-yard kickoff return. And the defense made life hell for Drew Lock. So you put it all together, it's just a reminder that there might be more kind of flashy teams getting more buzz out there right now for being complete teams. But the Chiefs don't get enough credit for being a defending world champion that doesn't just rely on Patrick Mahomes to save the day week after week.
Yeah, no doubt. You saw, and I don't know why we had kind of this weird week and a half, 2-week window where people were asking questions about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then they signed Le'Veon Bell. Oh, that's because maybe Edwards-Helaire isn't as good as we thought and isn't worth the first-round pick. He's great. He is a perfect fit for this offense, and you saw they leaned on him. Like you said, Mahomes only threw 23 passes, didn't have to worry about going over the 200 mark. Well, he hit 200 exactly. Tyreek Hill was sensational, and the one thing I took away from this, and maybe where I'm going to dock the Chiefs a little bit, is I think the Broncos were getting too much credit after that victory against New England. It was a 6-field goal afternoon. You know, it was a 2-interception effort by Drew Lock. Yeah, there were some drops out there, but it just kind of felt like I'm not really sold on the Broncos just yet. So I guess I wasn't all that surprised that the Chiefs were able to dominate the Broncos in the fashion that they happened to dominate. And remember, that offensive line is still trying to get sorted out in Denver. I'm not trying to make this a Broncos conversation, but I just, as we shift to the Steelers, I thought that Steelers victory was considerably more impressive considering the opponent and how highly I rate and regard the Titans.
Yeah, and I obviously like the Titans a lot as well. They entered Sunday's action ranked number 3, just behind the Steelers. And to go down to Nashville, and it's weird. It actually makes the power ranking a little trickier money. I used to love when teams would go into another team's house with 70,000 screaming fans and deliver a statement win, and that helped me kind of inform where I wanted to put a team. You don't get that same push anymore without anybody in the stands or there being like 10,000 people. But at the same time, it's still a great win for the Steelers and also a team win where we saw them get contributions on both sides. It was a balanced attack. The only thing that kept me from really considering moving them up to number 1 at being undefeated now for the first time since 1978 through 6 games is I didn't love the second half. I thought the Titans badly outplayed them in the final 2 quarters, and if not for another one of those bad Steven Gostkowski sightings, that game's probably going to overtime. So that kept me from moving them to number 1. But I like where they are at number 2, and I imagine they would too.
So my case for the Steelers would be, I think you let up, right? You had dominated the Titans so thoroughly and completely that I just feel like they maybe let up. That defense took their foot off the gas. They've been so dominating all season long. And when they needed to make the play, they did. Yeah, it was a Gostkowski miss, but you know what? It was a miss because they forced the intentional grounding by Ryan Tannehill with that pressure up the middle. You said it earlier, just a second ago. It doesn't have to be Chase Claypool. It doesn't have to be James Conner. It's somebody different every single week, and that's what you get when Ben Roethlisberger is back. T.J. Watt is an absolute menace. We know what Cam Hayward does, just pushing that pocket up the middle. It looks like the most complete team. I think, and maybe we'll get to the what I think is the most complete team in just 1 second, but I just feel like their defense is better than the Chiefs. The offense seems to be balanced. If it were a contest between those two teams in the AFC Championship, I think I would really struggle to figure out which way I would go in terms of picking. So I think it just kind of speaks to, well, give the Super Bowl champs the benefit of the doubt because it is that close. And like you said, it's not the power standings. Love that line. It's the power rankings. And now we get to the team because it is the power rankings and not the power standings.
I stole that line.
Number one.
Money, I stole that line from Kyle Brandt. I just want to give him credit on Good Morning Football. Go ahead, Money.
But you know what? He's an Ivy League guy. He's good looking. Everybody loves Kyle Brandt. Just own it. Give it to him, KB. Give it to the Zeuser, this guy here. I think the Bucs should be number one, Dan. Go ahead and make your case why they're three, and I'll come back and tell you why I think they're one.
Yeah, I mean, you can make the case for me moving them all the way up 5 spots to 1, but the fact that Pittsburgh went down to Nashville, got that big W, the fact that we just talked about what Kansas City was able to do in all phases of the game, I didn't want to dock them unfairly. So I moved the Bucs into the top 3. That's the first time that they've been there all season, and yeah, they're scary right now. And really, the defense has been getting a lot of love, and as it should, because they're playing out of their mind. Devin White has been a monster. But Tom Brady's performance, Money, on Sunday was scary, because what happens if Tom Brady is not a glorified game manager or just a solid guy? What if he's playing like it's 2007? And I'm not saying that's going to happen every week, Money, but for one game at least, that dime he threw to Scotty Miller in the back corner of the pylon, like this guy is playing at a all-pro level. 43 years old. I can't believe that this is happening.
Yeah, I would just add, I think it's the best defense. I do think it's a better defense than the Steelers. And we talked about that young secondary, kind of going all the way back to the second, maybe third week of the season and here on Power Rankings. And they're maturing fast. And it's easy to mature when you have Shaq Barrett and Levante David and Jason Pierre-Paul and Ndamukong Suh, who has rediscovered Nebraska-era Ndamukong Suh. He is an absolute menace on the interior of that line, and that allows a young secondary to thrive, to create interceptions, to cause chaos. You mentioned Devin White in his second year. My goodness, as if they couldn't be any better in the linebacking core with Levante David, who's arguably the best all-around linebacker in the league. Todd Bowles from his time as the head coach of the Jets. He's one of the best defensive minds in the league. You pair that up with a Tom Brady-led offense and the ability. You said you think maybe there's like some shades of 2007. This looks like 2007 Tom Brady. 15 touchdown passes to just 1 interception over his last 3. This is a scary team. I think they're the best in the league.
And Money, I think
quickly,
that
yes.
Top 3, it's very close, Money. I struggled with it. It could go flip in a week. We'll see.
I want to give you an opportunity because they are still in your top 8. I wouldn't have been surprised if you dropped them out, Dan, based on past. But how about a little victory lap for the Zeuser taking some incoming on the Seahawks the last couple of weeks?
Oh, Money, it's not like me to take victory laps on the seldom occasions that I'm right.
No.
But I'll do this one. And listen, Seahawks fans have been angry all season long with the power rankings for not putting them at number 1 during their undefeated start. But all these issues have been papered over by Russell Wilson's greatness, playing like a demigod, basically. So what we saw on Sunday night is what happens when the Seahawks defense doesn't have that safety net. And there it is. You get gashed for over 500 yards by Kyler Murray. You blow a 34-24 lead with less than 5 minutes to play.
Look at those stats.
You got to go down.
That's lasts.
You got to go down. Because you can't be a one-sided team in our league, as Troy Aikman says. You need balance, and that's why I keep them out of the top 5.
Yeah, last in yards, last against the pass. That is not a number 1 squad. We keep it in the NFC West. When we return, the 49ers are back to their nasty, punch-you-in-the-mouth means of offense. When we return, we try to solve the riddle, or at least Dan does, the old Zeuser of where they rank in our power ranking. Back on Power Rankings, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer. Go ahead, scan that code, get the full article at NFL.com. Here is 9 through 16, the second quadrant of the old Zeusers rankings. The Rams, with the demolition of the Bears on Monday night, prove they don't just feast on the NFC least, but got a victory over a 5-1 Bears squad. But let's go a couple spots down there, Dan, and focus on the Sunday nighter, because boy, were we subjected to a treat. It was a heck of a contest. The Kyler Murray-led Cardinals come back and force overtime, get a victory, and now have knocked off the 49ers and the Seahawks in the toughest division in all of football, the NFC West. And your takeaways from the Cardinals, and it's not C, I think it's Red C. It's hashtag Red C.
I believe so.
C Red. It's one of those two, yeah.
Close. Yeah, I think
close.
We knew that Kyler Murray is a special talent, and we've seen it as his game has jumped up in year 2. But this, to me, in prime time in front of Al, Chris, Michelle, and the world, this is really a coming out party. Like, this guy is one of the keystone, like, future guys in the league, and I just enjoyed seeing him go toe to toe with Russell Wilson in the let Russ cook era and coming out on top. I mean, it was just brilliant, and it just shows you, and you're watching, Monday night, for example, when Nick Foles gets in trouble and he's just buried because he can't move, he's a statue. Kyler Murray's ability to make things happen with his arm and his legs, it's just the way football's going now, and I really enjoyed this game. It was just so fun to watch these two quarterbacks going back and forth.
I mean, just look at that highlight right there. Just watch that over and over and over again. It is like a point guard on a basketball court with that lateral movement and breaking ankles all over the field as he dives forward, runs. And look, I think there's two parts to this. One is Kyler Murray. The other is Cliff Kingsbury, right? Because look at it. This is overtime. When they're playing shell and prevent, and what is Kingsbury calling? He's calling quarterback runs. And that's, I mean, you want to talk about creative coaching, right? For someone that took so much incoming when he was hired last year, losing record at Texas Tech. What is this 5 wide? And it started out poorly and everybody wanted to pile on. And what did he do? He figured it out. You adjust. Now you see 2 tight end sets, even 3 tight end sets with Kyler Murray running the ball on design runs, Chase Edmonds as well. You have the brilliant leadership of Larry Fitzgerald, that just heady play as the ball getter, in the offense to make sure everything is set to force that overtime. This is a scary squad. The fact that Isaiah Simmons is the one that came up with that interception in overtime, they're much heralded out of Clemson rookie, kind of do everything hybrid player, and he comes up with sort of the play for the defense of the game. This to me is an ascending team. They're where they are right now. I would not be surprised to see them crack the top 10 in the next 2 weeks. So much for, it's a tough schedule ahead. Well, the Cardinals are tough on your schedule.
Yeah, and
speaking,
and I'm with you on Cliff Kingsbury. What a great game overall. But I do have to ding him a couple head coach points for bringing on his field goal kicker on second down to attempt a 41-yard kick. That gave me like flashbacks of Herm Edwards in the 2004 AFC divisional playoffs against the Chargers. You got to get closer than that. The moment got big for Cliff there, but otherwise brilliant. And good job by that defense in Arizona, which struggled all game to get near Russell Wilson. When the chips were down, they gave him fits late in the fourth quarter and OT.
Yeah, it very well could have come back to haunt him. I mean, I'm sure. Look, it didn't. So I'm going to celebrate him since it didn't come back to haunt him. And we move on to the nastiest, the meanest squad in all the NFL, the 49ers, who they're going to punch you, and then after that, they're going to punch you some more, and then maybe they'll punch you a little bit more after that.
Yeah, I loved their game plan on Sunday. Their ability to say, you know what, I know we're missing our players. We're not the same team right now, but we have a game plan that works, and we know the Patriots are on the ropes a little bit. This stat from ESPN I loved. The Niners ran by design or used play action on 51 of their 63 offensive plays. That's 81%, the highest percentage by any team in a game this season. So you lose Jeff Wilson to injury on that play. You lose Deebo Samuel this week. I still think they're going to continue to score points because Kyle Shanahan's scheme is just so sound.
Well, I think what we focus on skill positions, right? It's the fantasy football era of football. And you don't understand that really for Kyle Shanahan, it's the 5 guys up front. Plus, it's actually, no, I shouldn't say that. That's taking away from what Kittle does, from what those wide receivers do. It is a blocking offense. It's not even a running offense. It's a blocking offense. And when you watch them in their wide zone and that offensive line in Brian Baldinger, our colleague, put together a brilliant video you should watch at Baldy NFL in his breakdown. I mean, they are so in step, and pardon the pun, in unison as they move to create those openings. It is Jeff Wilson. It is JaMychal Hasty. But you look outside, you see Deebo Samuel, Ayuk all blocking, Kittle all blocking. That's a nightmare to deal with. It's like playing, it's like playing Navy on your schedule when you're in college, and they're the only one that does what they do.
Right.
I think this is another team that's going to start moving up the rankings as we move forward these next couple weeks.
I'll take a ding there too, Money, that I have not been able to figure out the Niners or place them. They've been as high as 2 and as low as about 20. But I'm starting to be a believer as they start to roll through this meaty portion of their schedule.
Yeah, look, they have an identity, and man, it is a nasty identity to have to deal with on game week. Up next, speaking of nasty, we take it to Tampa and continue to tackle the trouble this Bucs bunch led by Todd Bowles is bringing on the defense.
Circus catch by Jared Cook. Touchdown! He's got his man, Devontae Adams. Touchdown, Green Bay Packers.
Touchdown, Chargers. Herbert.
Byron Pringle busts a 102 to taste the sweet nectar of the end zone.
Donovan Peoples-Jones. Touchdown! He got it!
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. They're an extra point away from winning this game.
Tipped up in the air and intercepted.
That's the third interception.
Let me hear you. Touchdown!
San Francisco! Picked off by Baker at the 5. Nobody's going to catch him unless Metcalf can. The chase is on. Metcalf might catch him, and he dives and he catches him. The Cardinals win it. An incredible finish.
Kick is wide right, no good. The Steelers are 6-0.
As we welcome you back to Power Rankings, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer, still going. And you know what? I just noticed this, Dan, even though we're a little bit deeper into the show with the arrival of autumn, the old Zeus are letting the locks get a little longer here, huh?
Growing it out a little bit. The part's in a different spot. I have a haircut appointment coming up, but for now, it's just going wild right now.
It is. It's wild. And you know what? Our observations of one another in this wonderful television marriage notwithstanding, it is time to bring a third person into the mix. It's mystery guest time, Zeuser. So you say stop, and we got something coming for you, the people that are watching.
All right. What I want is someone that has far better hair than either of us. Perfectly coiffed. No money, no money, no money, and stop.
It is no money. It is OH.
I know, baby. One completion away from a perfect day for Justin Fields.
See, You're going to make my point for me, Palmer. Intolerable college football communications with a certain Columbus-centered teams. But in the pro ranks, he's the best of the best. We talk Tampa with our intrepid Bucs insider, James Palmer. Thank you, James. And let's get started with the defensive side of the ball. So much attention on Tom Brady, but if you can share with us why this defense has become one of the top, if not the top unit in the league.
Yeah, Money, I spent, all of training camp living in Tampa, having Wawa on a daily basis, loving those hoagies, and, kicked in now this Philly boy right here. But I learned a lot down there about the defensive side of the ball. So much attention was with Tom Brady, but their focus really was in the offseason, because they didn't know if they'd get Brady, was to keep this defense together. And if you look at why they're so successful, obviously they're fast. Obviously they have talent on all three levels. But a lot of the credit should go to Todd Bowles, and we were talking earlier that it's starting to come. The biggest thing that I've been told is the balance that he has with what he's putting on a lot of these players' plate. He is allowing them to do a lot of different things, blitz in obviously a variety of ways, but at the same time not knowing and not overwhelming them in a sense to where they play a little bit slower, because speed's such a big aspect of them. I think Antoine Winfield on the backside has a legitimate Rookie of the Year candidate, the way he is playing at safety, and they knew that Devin White was going to take this big step in year two. It's maybe even bigger than what they thought it would be. Losing Vita Vea was huge, but his way they've performed after that just shows how deep and how talented this group is.
Yeah, losing Vita Vea is the type of injury that can cause a defense to go in the tank, and then you can point to it and be like, oh, they were great until this. The real great defenses are the ones that overcome it. And Devin White, he's pretty happy about where he is right now. And Cleveland Farrell, the guy picked before him, front row seat for John Gruden and Mayock about the mistake that they made on draft day last year.
Devin does everything, and that's the thing that they really believe, Dan, that he can do. And he actually pushed during training camp, can I blitz more? Can I go after the quarterback more? Can I use some of this explosive speed that I have? And I think they allow him and Levante David to do that because Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett are as athletic as they are, that they can drop them at times. So when you have all these different pieces, and this is one of the things Bruce Arians loves to rave about the most, is when you have all these athletes that can do a variety of things from the same spot, you're showing a quarterback one look, and you can do about 5 different things out of it. And that's why this front has played so well. But on the backside, I don't think they've gotten enough credit for the young talent that they've developed with these young corners. And obviously, I mentioned Antoine Winfield. That was kind of the big question mark heading into this season. And they feel, I talked to a lot of those guys back there, that their camp against Tom Brady and somebody who's so precise with the football helped them take a big step as a secondary. And now you're seeing it all kind of come together.
Yeah, it's the youngest secondary in the league. It's something we've discussed on Power Rankings in weeks prior, and you have seen them just get better week after week after week. And why not, especially when you have a front like that? Adding Devin White to the pass rush mix is only going to make them better. But Davis has been sensational. You mentioned Winfield is a potential and likely defensive Rookie of the Year. Let's shift to what a lot of people understand, and that's that Tom Brady is playing at his highest level in years. And what was expected of him, what kind of offense they wanted to run maybe when he arrived in town, compared to what we're seeing out there, 5 touchdown passes in a game.
Yeah, that's remarkable. You look at the last 5 games, what is it, 15 touchdowns and 1 interception. And people just wanted this to work right away, Money, right? With, he went to Berkeley Prep. He was throwing with the guys. Why aren't they clicking right off the bat? As many times as I talked to offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich, it was over and over again that we're still feeling this out. I'm still feeling out what Tom likes to work with, where we should be. And then it's the injuries. There was so much time during the early portion of this season that he hasn't had all of his weapons. Now, that's something around the league, and we're not going to make an excuse. But when you're trying to build timing and chemistry with all of these new guys, you saw Mike Evans get hurt right before the season, been playing on an ankle the rest of the way out now. And then you saw Chris Godwin with all the snaps that he has missed with the concussion and then the hamstring and now the finger. He really hasn't had a lot of time to work with all of these new weapons, and everything with Brady is precision and timing. And if you don't have those reps with him, it's hard to get going. And I think that's why you see what he's done with Scotty Miller, guys, because that's the one guy that's been out there almost every single day, and they've developed a pretty good rapport with each other. It's Scotty Miller who's leading this team in receiving right now.
Well, you mentioned chemistry, James, and now you potentially add Antonio Brown in the mix. And I know Bruce Arians provided some cover that this was not a Tom Brady-driven acquisition, but, followed the cheese on that one. Where does he fit into this, and does he potentially mess up a very good thing?
Well, that's the risk that you have, right, Danny? But I do think they do believe there is a greater reward here than the risk of Antonio Brown. Bruce Arians spent time with him in Pittsburgh. Obviously, Byron Leftwich was a teammate of his in Pittsburgh, and Brady knows him. So they do feel like there's a comfort level around him to keep things in check. But Arians did say he may not start, but this is adding depth, and that's, we'll take what Bruce says with a grain of salt over these next couple of weeks, but he may not start right away. They got to work him in, but it adds depth to a group that, like I said, continues to get banged up. And Arians was very open with us throughout the late part of training camp and early part of this season that the hamstring issues and things like that with your speed guys are more prevalent this year because of the offseason than years past. And now that they've gone through it and they've had those issues, and you also lose O.J. Howard for the season, which obviously not a receiver, but a dominant pass catcher, right? Part of your offense. I think that was also a factor in that they wanted to get deeper with this group. And really, if it doesn't work out, they're back where they are, which is number 3 in your power rankings before they even land Antonio Brown.
You okay with that? Number 3, is that a good spot? Do you respect it?
I like it.
Should be number 1.
I respect it.
They should be number 1.
Now James is right.
Absolutely, with that defense and
I was
Tom
at
Brady,
that Chiefs game. I was at that Chiefs game. They beat Denver like 9 different ways.
Yeah. Well, when Drew Lock has thrown 2 more interceptions and no touchdowns. We'll leave that for another day.
Buddy.
What?
You've taken it too far.
Before you want to crown him, crown him. I want to see it next week against the Chargers for Drew Lock and the Broncos. James Palmer, no doubt, will join us once again as we move forward on Power Rankings. Thank you, James.
See you guys.
Geez, stand down with that Bucs talk, money, at a certain point. All right, let's look at 17 through 24, and there they are, the Chargers moving ahead of the Patriots on a free fall for the Belichick gang. I want to start here, Money, when we talk about this tier, though, because you are the voice, of course, of the Bolts, and that gives you a front row seat for what's happening with Justin Herbert. It's a very special situation. I feel like we're blessed here at the Power Rankings to have you with the viewpoint you've had. What are you seeing from this guy? Because he did it again on Sunday.
We're seeing history. I'm able to make references, factual references, stat-based references to Dan Marino. Herbert now joins Marino as the only rookies to have a passer rating of 85 or higher in each of their first 5 starts. This is someone who leads the league on third down passing. Not rookies, leads the league in passer rating, completion percentage, touchdowns on third downs, and that's the money down, right? The big thing, too, with Herbert is Anthony Lynn 2 weeks ago said he's got to get greedy. I've got to pound into him that when you see that lane, just tuck the ball and go. Don't worry about, feeding the rest of your teammates. And you saw that this last week when he set a Chargers record for the most rushing yards by a quarterback with 66. He got a touchdown, his second rushing touchdown. And there you see it. This is going to be the touchdown right here. And the physicality, actually, this was the 31-yard run, which is, by the way, the longest individual run by a quarterback in Chargers history. And he capped it off with a rushing touchdown. So, and by the way, the touchdowns this week went to 5th-round draft pick Joe Reed, rookie, the first of his career, undrafted Jalen Guyton, undrafted Donald Parham, and blocking tight end Virgil Green. I mean, that's the sign of I think, a potential budding superstar at the position when it's not Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry, but that supporting cast because you're able to locate the open man on every play.
Absolutely. And what is the deal with these Chargers rushing records at quarterback? Did they come into the league like 18 months ago? 66
Turns
yards?
out in your past, when it's Stan Humphries and the Laufer, old Laufenberg, and Craig Wheelahan, there are some records that can be had, especially when it comes to running quarterbacks.
So much fun, though. I'm really enjoying watching them on a weekly basis. And remember all the talk around the Chargers entering the season was, they're moving into that big building in Hollywood Park, and there's no juice, and who's going to get excited about the franchise? Well, now you have. Well, I'm not going to say he's young Dan Marino, but he's playing like it as your linchpin for the next 15 years. That's a good thing right there.
Yeah, well, and you know what? As one ascends, another one falls, and that's the Patriots, who are right behind them there at number 18 after a second consecutive miserable outing from Cam Newton.
Oh, my goodness. This to me is Bill Belichick, the GM, letting down Bill Belichick, the coach, because this is what happens when you have a group of skill players that aren't highly skillful, Even Julian Edelman, who's been, one of the greats in Patriots history, he's 34 years old now, and he's not getting open like he used to. And now when you don't have Tom Brady in the building, because let's face it, they kicked that guy out the door and thought they could replace him and have no drop-off in their offense. Well, guess what? When you have a player like Cam Newton that struggles with accuracy and guys that don't get open, the offense is going to sputter. I don't see an easy fix for this team. I just think they're not very good.
Look, between all the opt-outs, the loss of Brady, I'm not saying that it was all Brady and zero Belichick, but you replaced Brady with a less accurate quarterback and the same weapons, and even less weapons around him with some of the opt-outs there as well. So what did you expect to happen? I don't think we thought, well, you know what it was? It was just the coronation of Cam came too soon. Yes, they were able to figure out some mismatches early. Guess what? Teams adjust, and then you have to adjust to those adjustments, and they haven't been able to do that. Maybe they'll figure it out. But I suspect we'll see more of this moving forward just because it's weird to say, but Tom trumped a lot of talent issues on that team. And boy, if it is 1v1 and you pit those two against one another for the GOAT status, one certainly has a dedicated advantage right now. And that would go ahead.
The fact that Brady is lighting it up like 2007 on the same Sunday where you're suffering the worst loss of the Belichick era at home, that's an extra twist to the knife. But you know what? Patriots fans, you guys had a nice run there, so nobody's going to be playing the violin.
And by the way, Tom does it, and Garoppolo was the opposing quarterback that did it to him as well. I mean, talk about really piling on Belichick. Up next, the Cowboys have completely checked out. Does Dallas have a lick of football dignity left after a second straight embarrassing out? Back on Power Rankings, presented by Energizer. Final quadrant, the bottom 8, 25 through 32. Get a sense that 32 is going to stick around there for a while. But let's focus on number 30, the Blue Star, the Jerry Dome, the Dallas Palace, and the conundrum the Cowboys currently find themselves in.
They keep getting worse. 25-3 to Washington was the final tally here. Feels like a team that's burning down from the inside out. And interesting how a week ago you had the report that the players didn't think the coaching staff was worth a damn, and that was the problem here more than anything else. And then Mike McCarthy steps to the podium after Sunday and gets after his players to the media for not rallying around Andy Dalton or going after John Bostic after that illegal hit concussed Dalton. Just ugly, ugly stuff. And I can imagine Elliot Harrison handled our power rankings for years before I did. I don't think they've ever been number 30 in this exercise on our website or on the network.
Yeah, well, I won't be surprised if you change that and amend that statement too. I don't think they've ever been 31, and even a potential, I don't think they've ever been 32. I think there is a possibility for that. I don't want to take anybody's job, but man, this looks like one and done, and I wonder if it's even going to be one the way things are going for Mike McCarthy. It is an absolute miserable situation down there in Dallas. And it's time now for Power Moves, presented by Energizer. She is the dignitary of the derivative, the leading predictive analytics authority in all the land. It is our Cynthia Freeland here with math to make sense of the often nonsensical. And Cynthia, today you're bringing info on big impact injuries and how teams can overcome them. We saw a few this past week, and sadly, it's led by a season-ending injury, ACL injury to Odell Beckham Jr., and what the Browns do to move forward after that.
Well, what they do is they use Rashad Higgins and, of course, Donovan Peoples-Jones, who we saw kind of make a huge impact in the second half of the game against the Bengals. The interesting part about what Baker Mayfield's been able to do to give him that jump in Dan's rankings is his ability to kind of use non-play action, play action, all sorts of different types of touchdown throws. They're really going to need to create a lot of different options in order to try to make up for the impact of no Odell Beckham Jr. Because if you look at the math, it's not so great for Baker in terms of what happens with interceptions when he's not on the field.
Do we buy into this theory at all that Baker somehow is a more productive quarterback without Odell Beckham? Are we buying that?
I sell that. I sell that all the way. Sell that all the way to zero.
Yeah, look, if you're not if you don't have command of a huddle, then certainly a personality like Odell Beckham Jr. can take over. And we always heard that about Terrell Owens, right? Repeatedly, that he would bark at his quarterbacks all the time. And, if you're Baker and you're taking incoming from the Browns faithful, I can see how that could maybe play. But I'm going to go ahead and take the talent of Odell Beckham Jr. over not Odell Beckham Jr. on the field and what kind of havoc that causes for a defense. The 49ers, Cynthia, they do a lot with Deebo Samuel. He's not just a wide receiver. He is one of those offensive weapons, and now they're going to be out. He's going to be out with a hammy injury here.
Well, when you look to see what Kyle Shanahan's been doing, he's been pulling rabbits out of the hat all season long with a ton of injuries. Their injury list is so long. Unfortunately, kind of similar to the Browns, they're playing in a really difficult division. So if you look to see how Brandon Ayuk will have to step up, they're going to have to use this weapon kind of all of a lot of different ways. I'm not going to say as many different ways as Deebo because they're not the same type of player necessarily. However, they're going to rely on him even more. And that run game that we've seen be, oh my goodness, JaMychal Hasty, like you name it, everyone's been playing running back for them in some form or fashion. So that's going to be really interesting because they have a very difficult matchup at Seattle after Seattle's coming off a loss. So this is going to be one that I have my eye on because this division is incredibly difficult this season.
We're getting to the stage with the Niners now, and it's a bit of a cliche in beat reporting that you're going to start getting the headlines, what's going on with the 49ers training staff? But you know what? It's a war of attrition, obviously, and it's just been relentless, the bad luck the Niners have had with the injuries.
It's funny with their wide receivers. It's less about how good are the routes you run, how crisp are the routes you run, how sound are your hands. No, can you block? Because that's what we need from you. Just block. We're just going to continue to run. So that's what needs to happen. Replace the strength and blocking of Deebo Samuel. And let's end it with that Sunday nighter. The Cardinals lose Kenyon Drake, and that's kind of been something with Kenyon now for a while. But what do they do without Drake, who really had kind of emerged after a lot of questions were whether or not he would be the lead back, the previous couple weeks?
Let's be honest, he didn't have a great start to the season. His average yards per carry was down under 3 for most games in competitive downs, meaning when it wasn't a blowout. Even in that Cowboys game, it wasn't necessarily great until they were winning by a whole bunch of points. So you're going to see Chase Edmonds. He's going to really have to step up here. the interesting thing is we've already seen him do this. So I'm less concerned about the impact of no Drake because it doesn't seem like this is for the rest of the season. In fact, this could probably be an advantage because it will give Chase Edmonds a few more touches, a few more reps. And this could be one of those late season surges. We're already seeing the Cardinals kind of figuring out their offense and how the defense works with the offense. So it could be actually beneficial for them to have Chase Edmonds figure out a few more different ways to gain those yards. We already saw him be really effective. So those could be one of those ways where then they get Kenyon Drake back and then, it's going to be really tough or even tougher to defend this Cardinals offense.
Cliff Kingsbury, benefit of the doubt now for me. I just assume that they're going to find a way. You put up over 500 yards in Sunday Night Football. I'm buying into your ability to get past injuries.
I think the Seahawks fans have something to say to you about that, Hanzus.
I know, they can pipe down.
That's just more salt for Seattle from Dan Hanzus. Be sure to dig deeper on all her arrivals with a quick trip to NFL.com/Freeland. Thank you, Cynthia. And just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've added this to your Power Rankings purchase. Impact Matchups, the 3 contests that contain teams set to make big moves with a Week 7 win or loss. Thursday Night Football returns to Charlotte this week as the Panthers play host to the Falcons. Coverage starts at 6 p.m. Eastern on NFL Network, followed by kickoff at 8 p.m. on NFL Network, Fox, and Amazon Prime Video. Get to impact matchups, 3 contests that we think will have considerable impact on the old Zeusers power rankings come the time we do this next week. And the Zeuser, I'm going to get started with a team we watched just last night. The Rams demolish the Bears on Monday Night Football. They will take on the Miami Dolphins, and wins in the NFC West. You better beat teams you are expected to beat. That is what's on the task, I should say, for the Rams. For the Dolphins, Tua takes over a team that's got high expectations. And look, high individual expectations for their quarterback. Burrow was a number 1 pick to a terrible team. Herbert was pressed into duty following a weird injury to Tyrod Taylor and exceeded expectations. And Tua was taken 1 pick ahead of him. And I'm excited, and I believe he will be the 3rd productive and exceptional piece of a heck of a quarterback class. Look at the AFC. You've got these 3 rookies, Pat Mahomes, Deshaun Watson. I mean, young quarterbacks litter the AFC, and I think this is just the next great class of them. Colts, Lions. The Lions are 3-3. Don't care if Gurley blew it for that to happen. Stafford was dealing, throwing dimes. TJ Hawkinson is a nightmare matchup and continues to grow in his 2nd season. And look, you liked the Lions early, and there was good reason for that. It was the coaching that we wondered about. Winning a game like this that maybe you shouldn't have is a huge boost. Remember, the Colts They're coming off that mess from Phillip Rivers against the Browns, and then they had to rally from the depths to beat the Bengals. We kind of forget about what their last two looked like. So this is a big test that they ought to be able to win against the Lions if they're going to fulfill the promise that a lot of people had predicted for them in the AFC. And finally, I'll cap it with Raiders and Browns. The Browns 5-2. Now, I'm a believer. The Zeuser is not. But Baker saved the Browns from bust. 5 touchdowns after that miserable start. 2 of them went to his rookie, Harrison Bryant. Myles Garrett's got 9 sacks. And that's the deal. You have to rebound from that interception, from an injury to Odell Beckham Jr. You throw a dime like that to Peoples-Jones. It was a heck of a game. The Raiders, meanwhile, they have no pass rush. They got absolutely torched by Tom Brady. What was coming off that win against Kansas City going into the bye, a big celebration, I think, is a huge question mark. And if we're going to talk about the Raiders in a positive light again, this is a game they absolutely have to win. And with Myles Garrett and those 9 sacks, man, that is not going to be an easy task.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Raiders. Like, how do you kind of figure out where they stand? They're not an elite team. They're not a bad team. That's why they're right at 15. The Browns, listen, I have not bought in on the Browns, although they did reach as high as number 9 on these power rankings. But Baker Mayfield, I did not see that performance coming. He starts 0-5 with a pick. Odell blows out his knee. For him to get so red hot, that was not something I saw coming. So good on him, and let's see if he could kind of string it together, because inconsistency is a thing with Baker. You got to be a consistent player in our league. Troy Aikman, copyright.
Let's shift to honest assessments for you, Dan. Just quick hitters. And the Titans were undefeated going into that contest against the Steelers. Where are you at with Tennessee?
I'm still fine with them. I dropped them, obviously, because you don't win at home against the Steelers in a big test. But they showed a lot of moxie in that second half, and they almost overcame a 20-point third-quarter deficit. The defense has got to be better, though, in a big spot like that. They allowed 13 of 18 third-down conversions, which killed them in time of possession and kept Derrick Henry and Tannehill pinned to the sideline. So they got to clean it up a little bit, but I still feel good about them.
Yeah, I think they're the team you'd least like to tackle. Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown. Man, that is just a big bunch. Jonnu Smith. Let's go to the Bills. I think the Bills are too high at 8. I'll be honest, Dan. That's been ugly these last couple weeks.
Yeah, the Jets profiled as a perfect get-right opponent, and then they find themselves Buffalo down 10-0 in the second quarter, and Josh Allen is unable to crack the end zone in this game. They have to settle for roughly 400 Tyler Bass field goal. So I get it, and I did think about should I drop them, but the defense still played great football. I know it's the Jets, but they allowed 4 yards of offense in the second half. So you combine
doing my best Tom Brady here. 4.
Exactly. I keep them where they are, but yeah, they need to get back to where they were on offense.
You're just afraid of the Bills Mafia. What about Washington?
I don't think anybody should be afraid of any team in the NFC East, but good on them. Kyle Allen plays a solid game at quarterback, and with that defense, they're the one team I think I see the Eagles as the favorite to win this damned division. But Washington is the team that I think can make a play potentially if they get average quarterback play.
I'm taking the Washington football team to the East. I'm just going to say that right now. I'm going to put that out there right now. You heard it. Week 7, Washington football team wins the NFC East with my Energizer still going, powered sunglasses. You want to zing the Zeuser? Your social media shots will be served cold next, like this. What do the Steelers have to do to be number 1? Because winning every game isn't working.
Power standings.
Okay, constructive criticism always kind of wraps this up here. Not kind of, it does. Let's
Bring
get
it.
started. Insults. This is getting ridiculous. The Steelers are the best team in football. The Chiefs aren't even top 3.
I mean, a Steelers fan would say that, but the Chiefs are the defending world champions, and they're playing great football, all-around football. Just be happy where you are. I like the Steelers. I've liked them all season. Pipe down.
Yeah, and by the way, you had us maybe until you said the Chiefs aren't even top 3.
Come on now.
All right, another zinger for
Grow
the
up.
Zeuser. Well, and this guy, I don't know if you're aware, but he's a monster. According to NFL Power Rankings, you're weaker than the team you beat. Dan Hanzus officially hates the Arizona Cardinals. How about that? How about the head-to-head there, huh? In a tough NFC West?
It's one of my pet peeves and my mentions on Twitter connected to Power Rankings. You know, just because a team gets beaten by another team does not mean that they are better. What if, by the grace of God, the Jets go to Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs on Sunday? Do I put the Jets at number 1 next week? Come on now. It's not how it works.
Clearly by I'm a Monsters, ranking etiquette, you would. I don't know what I'm trying to say there. I just don't want to get to this because I want insults. I don't want this, Lenny. Always a good morning when you wake up and get to read at Dan Hanzus' Power Rankings. I tried to delay it, but I couldn't spit it out.
How does it feel, Money, to see a little praise shining down on the old Zeuser? This is jealousy. I feel it. It's pouring off you.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm talking like Charlie Casserly right now.
It pains me. Get it all at NFL.com. Tell your friends, enemies, parents,
Thank
children.
you,
Power Rankings back next week. Thank you, Cynthia, James Palmer, Zeuser, and me, Matt Money Smith. Thanks for watching.